Will they side with the new Afrikaners and defend Israel? Or will they ally with the righteous Jews and call for making Greater Israel a true democracy? Or will they sit silently on the sidelines? I believe that most of the Jews in the great ambivalent middle will not defend apartheid Israel, but will either keep quiet or side with the righteous Jews against the new Afrikaners, who will become increasingly marginalized over time. And once that happens, the lobby will be unable to provide cover for Israel's racist policies towards the Palestinians the way it has in the past. There are a number of reasons why there is not likely to be much support for Israel inside the American Jewish community, as it looks more and more like white-ruled South Africa. For starters, apartheid is a despicable political system, and it is fundamentally at odds with basic American values as well as core Jewish values. This is why the new Afrikaners will defend Israel on the grounds that it is not an apartheid state, and that security concerns explain why Israel has to discriminate against and oppress the Palestinians. But again, we are rapidly reaching the point where it is hard to miss the fact that Greater Israel is becoming a full-fledged apartheid state, and that those who claim otherwise are either delusional or disingenuous. Simply put, not many American Jews are likely to be fooled by the new Afrikaners' arguments. Furthermore, survey data shows that younger American Jews feel less attachment to Israel than their elders. This is surely due to the fact that the younger generations were born after the Holocaust and after anti-Semitism had largely been eliminated from American life. Also, Jews have been seamlessly integrated into the American mainstream, to the point where many community leaders worry that rampant intermarriage will lead to the disappearance of American Jewry over time. Not surprisingly, younger Jews are less disposed to see Israel as a safe haven should the Goyim go on another anti-Semitic rampage, because they recognize that this is simply not going to happen here in the United States. That perspective makes them less inclined than their elders to defend Israel no matter what. There's another reason why American Jews are likely to feel less connected to Israel in the years ahead. Important changes are taking place in the demographic makeup of Israel that will make it more difficult for them to identify closely with the Jewish state. When Israel was created in 1948, few ultra-Orthodox Jews lived there. In fact, ultra-Orthodox Jews were deeply hostile to Zionism, which they viewed as an affront to Judaism. Secular Jews dominated Israeli life at its founding, and they still do. But their influence has been waning and is likely to decline much more in the decades ahead. The main reason is that the ultra-Orthodox are a rapidly growing percentage of the population because of their stunningly high birth rates. It is estimated that the average ultra-Orthodox woman has 7.8 babies. As many of you know, the Jewish areas of Jerusalem are increasingly dominated by the ultra-Orthodox. In fact, in the 2008 mayoral election in Jerusalem, an ultra-Orthodox candidate boasted, "In another 15 years, there will not be a secular mayor in any city in Israel." Of course, he was exaggerating, but his boast is indicative of the growing power of the ultra-Orthodox in Israel. One final piece of data. About one half of Israeli school children in first grade this year are either Palestinian or ultra-Orthodox. Given the high birth rates of the ultra-Orthodox and the Palestinians, their percentage of the first graders, and ultimately the population at large, will grow steadily with time. But varying birth rates among Israel's different communities are not the only factor that is changing the makeup of Israeli society. There is another dynamic at play. Large numbers of Israelis have left the country to live abroad, and most of them are not expected to return home. Several recent estimates suggest that between 750,000 and 1 million Israelis reside in other countries, and most of them are secular. On top of that, public opinion surveys indicate that many Israelis would like to move to another country. This situation is likely to get worse over time because many secular Jews will not want to live in an apartheid state whose politics and daily life are increasingly shaped by the ultra-Orthodox. All of this is to say that Israel's secular Jewish identity, which has been so powerful from the start, is slowly eroding and promises to continue eroding over time as the ultra-Orthodox grow in number and influence. That important development will make it more difficult in the years ahead for secular American Jews, who make up the bulk of the Jewish community here in the United States, to identify closely with Israel and be willing to defend it when it becomes a full-blown apartheid state. Of course, that reluctance to back Israel will be further strengthened by the fact that American Jews are among the staunchest defenders of traditional liberal values. The bottom line is that Israel will not be able to maintain itself as an apartheid state over the long term, because it will not be able to depend on the American Jewish community to defend its loathsome policies towards the Palestinians. And without that protection, Israel is doomed, because public opinion in the West will turn decisively against Israel as it turns itself into a full-fledged apartheid state. Thus, I believe that Greater Israel will eventually become a democratic binational state, and the Palestinians will dominate its politics, because they will outnumber the Jews in the land between the Jordan and the Mediterranean. What is truly remarkable about this situation is that the Israel lobby is effectively helping Israel commit national suicide. Israel, after all, is turning itself into an apartheid state, which, as Ehud Olmert has pointed out, is not sustainable in the modern era. What makes this situation even more astonishing is that there is an alternative outcome which would be relatively easy to achieve and is clearly in Israel's best interest, the two-state solution. It is hard to understand why Israel and its American supporters are not working overtime to create a viable Palestinian state in the occupied territories, and why instead they are moving full steam ahead to build Greater Israel, which will be an apartheid state. It makes no sense from either a moral or strategic perspective. Indeed, it is an exceptionally foolish policy. What about the Palestinians? I believe that the two-state solution is the best outcome for them as well as the Israelis. However, the Palestinians have little say in whether there will be two states living side by side, because they are presently at the mercy of the Israelis, who are the lords of the land. This means that the Palestinians are going to end up living in Greater Israel, which will be an apartheid state. Again, one might even argue that they have already reached that point. Regardless, the Palestinians will obviously have a vested interest in moving away from apartheid and toward democracy as quickly and painlessly as possible. Of course, that will not be easy, but there are better and worse ways to achieve that end. Let me conclude with a few words of advice to the Palestinians about how they should go about turning Greater Israel into a democratic binational state. First, it is essential to recognize that the Palestinians and the Israelis are engaged in a war of ideas. To be more specific, This is a war about two competing visions of the Middle East.